The rain came down in sheets that morning, turning the Chicago streets into rivers of gray. Chen clutched her portfolio tighter against her chest, her heart hammering as she checked her phone for the 100th time. 8:45. She had exactly 45 minutes to make it to the interview that could change everything. The junior architect, position at Brennan and Associates, the firm she'd dreamed of joining since her freshman year of college. Her shoes were already soaked through, her carefully ironed blazer spotted with rain, but none of that mattered. This was her shot. After 2 years of working double shifts at a diner while sending money home to help her mother with medical bills, after countless rejection emails and doors closed in her face, she finally had a chance to prove herself. She couldn't be late. She wouldn't be late. The subway platform was packed, with the usual morning chaos, commuters jostling for position, the screech of metal on metal, the smell of coffee and damp wool. Maya squeezed through the crowd, her mind already rehearsing her answers to potential interview questions. She'd practiced them 1,000 times in front of her bathroom mirror, but the words still felt clumsy on her tongue. That's when she saw him. An elderly man, maybe 70 or 75, had collapsed near the platform edge. His walker had skidded away from him, and he was on his hands and knees, trying desperately to stand while people rushed past him like water around a stone. A few glanced down. 1 or 2 slowed their pace, but no one stopped. Everyone had somewhere to be, something more important than an old man's dignity. Maya felt her feet slow, felt that pull in her chest that her mother always called the voice of conscience. She looked at her phone again. 8:47. If she helped him, if she made sure he was okay, she'd miss her train. There was another one in 12 minutes, but that would be cutting it impossibly close. She might make it if traffic was perfect, if every light turned green, if the universe aligned in her favor. But the universe, she'd learned, rarely worked that way. The old man's hands were shaking as he reached for his walker. His coat was wet, his gray hair plastered to his forehead. And in his eyes, when he looked up and met Maya's gaze for just a second, she saw something that broke her heart. Not anger or frustration, but resignation. The look of someone who'd stopped expecting help from strangers. Maya made her decision in the space of a heartbeat. She shoved her phone into her pocket and dropped to her knees beside him. "Sir, let me help you," she said, her voice gentle as she reached for his arm. "Are you hurt? Did you hit your head?" The man looked startled, as if he couldn't quite believe someone had actually stopped. I'm okay," he said, though his voice was weak and his hands continued to tremble. "Just lost my balance. These wet floors." "Let's get you up slowly," Maya said, positioning herself to support his weight. He was heavier than she'd expected, and for a moment she worried they'd both go down. But she braced her feet, held firm, and helped him rise. She retrieved his walker, checked it for damage, and handed it to him carefully. "Thank you," he breathed. And there was such genuine relief in his voice that Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "You're very kind. Are you sure you're all right? Should I call someone? An ambulance?" He shook his head quickly. No, I'm fine, just embarrassed more than anything. "Getting old isn't for the faint of heart, young lady." Maya smiled despite herself. "Do you need help getting to your train?" "I'll be all right. You've done more than enough." He studied her face for a moment, and something shifted in his expression. "You were in a hurry. I saw you running. I'm so sorry to have delayed you." Maya's stomach dropped as she remembered. She pulled out her phone. 8:53. The train was already pulling into the station. She watched it arrive, watched the doors open, watched people flood on and off. She could still make it. She could run right now, leave this old man, and maybe, just maybe, still get there on time. But she looked at him, still unsteady on his walker, still too pale, and she couldn't do it. "It's okay," she said, and she meant it, even as her dream job slipped through her fingers. "I'll catch the next one. Let me at least walk you to a bench where you can sit down properly." She guided him to a bench near the platform entrance, made sure he was comfortable, offered him the bottle of water from her bag. They sat together until color returned to his face, until his hands stopped shaking quite so badly. He told her his name was Robert, that he'd been heading to a breakfast meeting, that his daughter usually drove him, but she'd had an emergency with the grandkids. Maya told him about the interview, tried to keep the devastation out of her voice. It's all right, she said, though her throat felt tight. Maybe it wasn't meant to be. Or maybe something better is meant to be, Robert said quietly. He pulled out his phone with fingers that still trembled slightly. What's your name? Maya Chen. He typed something into his phone, then looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Maya Chen, who was supposed to interview at Brennan and Associates this morning? She blinked. Yes, how do you know that? Robert smiled, and it was warm and knowing and tinged with something like wonder. Because I own Brennan and Associates. I'm Robert Brennan, and I was on my way to that same building to sit in on some of today's interviews. Actually, including yours. The world seemed to tilt. Maya felt like she was still on her knees on that wet subway platform, except now everything had gone surreal. You're the man you just missed your interview for, he finished. The interview you sacrificed because you chose kindness over ambition. He was quiet for a moment, watching her process this. Do you know how many people walked past me this morning, Maya? Dozens, maybe hundreds, all of them with places to be, all of them with their own dreams and deadlines. And you were the only one who stopped, the only one who saw a person instead of an inconvenience. Maya couldn't find words. Her mind was spinning, trying to reconcile this dignified old man with the legendary Robert Brennan, the architect who designed half of Chicago's most iconic buildings, whose firm was considered the gold standard in the industry. I'm calling my office right now, Robert said, already dialing. Margaret? Yes, it's me. I'm running late, but I need you to do something. Maya Chen was supposed to interview this morning. Yes, the 9:30. Don't let anyone else leave that room. I'm bringing her myself, and I'm conducting the interview personally. He paused, listening, because I already know everything I need to know about her character. Now I just need to learn about her work. He ended the call and turned to Maya, who was crying now, tears streaming down her face faster than she could wipe them away. You didn't have to do that, she whispered. I couldn't leave you there. Exactly, Robert said softly. You couldn't leave me there. You have something that can't be taught in any architecture school. Maya, you have humanity. You have compassion. You have the kind of heart that designs buildings for people, not just for skylines. He stood, steadier now, and offered her his hand. Now come on. We have an interview to get to, and this time I'm not letting either of us be late. As Maya rode the subway beside Robert Brennan, headed toward the opportunity of a lifetime, she thought about all the mornings she'd rushed past people who needed help, all the times she'd been too busy or too focused on her own struggles to notice someone else's pain. She thought about how easily she could have kept running, how close she'd come to being just another person who looked away. The job offer came 3 days later, along with something unexpected, a full scholarship fund that Robert had established in her name, designed to help young architects from difficult financial backgrounds pursue their dreams without sacrificing their values. In honor of the girl who taught me that the next generation still knows how to care, the letter read. But the real gift had come on that rainy subway platform, in a moment of choice that had felt like a sacrifice, but turned out to be a salvation. Maya had learned that kindness is never wasted, that the person you help today might be the person who changes your tomorrow, and that sometimes missing your shot is exactly how you find your destiny. The universe, it turned out, had a way of rewarding those who looked beyond themselves, who chose humanity over hurry, who understood that we're all just people trying to make it through another day, and sometimes we all need someone to help us stand.